and temperatures remaining on the cool side for the time of year too. We've got some more persistent outbreaks of rain working their way in from Northern Ireland southeastwards, across southwestern parts of Scotland, into parts of northern England and eventually the north of Wales as we head into the afternoon today. Towards the north and northeast of that is brighter, but with a scattering of blustery showers, whereas across southern England, particularly down towards the southwest, plenty of sunshine, just a gradual influx of cloud as we head through the day here. Towards the north and northeast it stays chilly for the time of year, temperatures no better than 12 to 14 Celsius, peaking though in the southeast at 20 Celsius, 68 in Fahrenheit. So towards the end of the day we'll see a continuation of sunshine and showers across the north and northeast of Scotland. Still that chilly north to northwesterly wind to contend with as well. Then we run into that area of more persistent rain across Northern Ireland, into parts of southwest Scotland, northwest England and North Wales, whereas further south is a brighter picture still to end the day, some cloud feeding in from the north, so the best of the sunshine reserved for the southwest of England, and in the sunshine here temperatures still into the high teens Celsius. Heading through the evening into the overnight period on Sunday, those outbreaks of rain across Northern Ireland and the southwest of Scotland continue southeastwards to affect all parts of England and Wales as we head through the overnight period. Notice some outbreaks of rain turning quite heavy in places too, whereas further north across Scotland and Northern Ireland we go into clearer skies with showers and turning quite chilly here. Could even see a touch of frost by Monday morning on one or two sheltered spots. As for Monday itself, well, outbreaks of rain gradually push away towards the south and east of England and Wales, leaving brighter skies across the whole of the UK, coupled though with quite a few showers, the showers most widespread towards the north and northwest, again accompanied by quite a brisk north to northwesterly wind. And wherever you are, those temperatures struggle still for the time of year, no better than 12 or 13 Celsius in a few places towards the north of the UK, up to 17 Celsius at the very best towards the south and southeast.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're making this summer funner with 3 incredible prizes to be won. First, a fantastic £15,000 in tax-free cash that you can spend on anything you like. Next, there's the latest iPhone 15 with a brand new set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at the UK attraction of your choice. The summer fun could be on us. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
We'll be there.
This is GB News.
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9 I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
she could have said stump.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
It went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Very good morning to you. Welcome to Sunday with Ben Leo today, stepping in for Michael Portillo for this week only, who, as far as I understand, has been busy celebrating his birthday abroad. Very happy birthday to you, Michael, if you're tuning in. I hope the next 2 hours of debate, culture and world affairs will keep you tapped on and tuned in right through to midday. We'll be getting the latest on some sad breaking news this morning on the discovery of a body in the hunt for missing TV doctor Michael Mosley in Greece. A major operation was launched to find the doctor after he vanished while hiking alone in blistering 36-degree heat on the island of Symi on Wednesday. This morning, sadly, Greek authorities announced they have found a body in a cave, with the local mayor suggesting it is indeed Dr. Mosley, who they say fell some 30 foot off a cliff edge into the sea. Father of four Michael, 67, was one of Britain's best-known medics whose revolutionary diet advice saw him adored by millions. Known for his open nature and energetic personality, he was world-renowned for popularising the 5-2 diet and releasing a string of best-selling books. Elsewhere in the news, as a British man this week was reported to have travelled 10,000 miles to get his tooth fixed, and with an overall rise of people resorting to DIY dentistry, think of string around a wobbly tooth and yanking it out, should we really be taking our teeth into our own hands? I'll be talking to the king of celebrity smiles, Dr. Richard Marquez, for his diagnosis very shortly. We're also a nation that loves to wine and dine, of course, and next week is the start of English Wine Week. I'll be joined by founder of Mouse and Grape, Jessica Summer, who'll have some hot tips for finding the best booze in the land. And, of course, arts editor of The Express, Stefan Kyriazis, will, of course, be here to talk us through the latest theatrical adventures. Before all that, your news headlines first with Theo Chikomba.
Good morning, it's 2 minutes past 11. I'm Theo Chikomba in the GB newsroom. A body has been found in the search for TV doctor Michael Mosley, who went missing on a Greek island earlier this week. The deputy mayor confirmed a body was located in a cave off a rocky area beside Agia Marina. The 67-year-old vanished on the island of Symi after he set off on a walk from St Nicholas Beach but failed to return home. Greek police, firefighters, local residents and tourists have spent the last few days searching a rocky area north of the village of Pedi, where he was last seen. The Conservatives are to set out a plan to save around £12 billion a year by tightening the criteria for those who claim benefits. It would see more people told to find work, including some who receive disability payments. The Prime Minister has also pledged to tackle what he's called sick note culture. It would mean GPs are no longer able to sign people off work with specialist workplace health professionals given the responsibility instead. Labour called it a vague promise that won't get Britain healthy or bring benefits under control, but Work and Pension Secretary Mel Stride disagrees.
We will be having mental health teams for every single primary, secondary school in the country and FE college, and we'll have mental health hubs, 150 of those across the country for those aged between 11 and 25. And alongside that, Camilla, of course, what we're doing is reforming the gateway into benefits, which we know from what the OBR tells us, for example, with the work capability assessments, changes that we're making, that will mean 440,000 fewer people on those long-term benefits going forward.
Meanwhile, Labour is pledging to alleviate some of the pressure on overcrowded prisons with a plan to add 14,000 new places. It would see some prisons classified as sites of national importance, so ministers can take control of planning decisions. It comes after some inmates were released early due to severe overcrowding across the prison system. The government previously promised to deliver 20,000 new prison places by the mid-2020s. Just 6,000 have been created so far. Shadow Attorney General Emily Thornberry told GB News that the problem is getting worse.
There seem to be 2 places that have been identified for 2 prisons, and the money has been allocated, and yet they haven't spent it. We know that there is an absolute crisis in our criminal justice system. We've had judges advised to go slow on cases. We've had police officers advised not to arrest too many people. We've had a whole lot of prisoners who've been released because the prisons are just about, overflowing. And they just seem to be, it's kind of like it's a really good example of just like what's gone wrong with this government. They just seem to have totally run out of steam.
For the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alert. Now it's back to Ben.
Thank you, Theo, and a very good morning to you all tuning in on television and radio. Ben Leo here, filling in for Michael Portillo, who's been preoccupied celebrating his birthday this week with a well-deserved break. I'm joined by a top panel this morning. This includes former advisor to Michael Gove, Charlie Rowley, former Labour advisor Stella Chaidikidu, and former Labour MP Dennis McShane. Good morning to you all. Thanks for joining me. Charlie, I understand you were at Michael's birthday at some point. When was it? Last weekend.
I was. It was in the middle of last week, and it was a very good party celebrating someone of this parish. And and I must say, I think he's approaching your age, Ben. I think from the wrong direction.
Michael?
But yes, but you're looking very well, equally as well as he.
Thank you. It was fancy dress, I understand. What was the theme?
Well, I think it'd be remiss if I get into all the details, but it was a very good party over a couple of days, and everybody there. It was a nice mix of people.
Yeah. I saw some interesting pictures. Well, nice of you to join us this morning, and of course 2 Labour types to balance things out. Shall we start first of all with the sad news breaking actually in the last hour about TV doctor Michael Mosley, who, as we understand, his body's sadly been found in Greece. The local mayor on the island of Symi says that he thinks the theory is Dr. Mosley fell 30 foot off a cliff edge into the sea, and his body was found in a set of caves. Stella, should we start with you, seeing as you are of Greek descent?
I find that completely heartbreaking because when I first came to the UK, I used to watch Michael Mosley on TV, and I found him incredibly lovable. And to find out that he went on holidays on the island of Symi, which is a lovely, beautiful Greek island. I was there last year, completely picturesque, tiny, tiny, tiny. And his lovely holiday turned into a nightmare. I think something that I've seen a lot when I go on holidays on Greek islands is British people, they are used to going hiking a lot here in the UK. And here in the UK, you very, very rarely will have the danger of overheating. But Greek islands, they are extremely dry. There is nowhere to hide. There is no water anywhere around if you're going hiking. It's just rocks. It is very, very easy to find yourself at a space where Google Maps will tell you can do this distance in an hour. You start doing it, you realize it's actually 3 hours, and halfway through, you become dizzy, maybe you lose your balance, and I imagine this is what happened with him because he was a very fit person.
Yeah, my family are from Lesvos, my siblings, and I mean, in the height of summer, in August, it's 40 degrees plus, on a normal summer, so 36-degree heat. I mean, someone was saying that when you've come straight from the UK, Charlie, in typical 15 to 20-degree temperatures, and immediately go hiking in, say, 30-plus temperatures, it's not good on the body.
It's not. You've got to keep hydrated. You've got to keep yourself protected from the sun, from the heat, from the different climate. Absolutely. And as Stella was saying there, obviously the climate is so different from the UK. It can obviously be more of a challenge than most. But you're absolutely right. It's tragic news, and you could just tell from the outpouring of people that did know Ms. Mosley on social media. The hope that they were giving to him and his family, all the love that they were providing in the hope that he would be found. And obviously it's very sad news that he now has been.
His 4 children flew into Symi yesterday or the day before. And as you mentioned, tributes all across the board this morning. Julia Hartley-Brewer said, "This is very sad news. I interviewed Michael Mosley a few times about his Fast 800 diet, and he was an absolutely lovely man. My condolences Tom Watson, the former Labour MP. He said this morning, "It's hard to describe how upset I am by this news. Through courageous, science-based journalism, Michael Mosley has helped thousands of people get well and healthy. I'm one of them. He was a hero to me. He'll be deeply missed." Dennis McShane.
He was also a remarkable Renaissance intellectual polymath. He qualifies from Oxford as a top economist, gets a big job in the city consultancy firm, then gives it up and says, "I want to serve people. I'm going to become a doctor." So he qualifies as a doctor. And then he re-qualifies as a psychiatrist and finds a way of putting all that knowledge together in a very generous, popularising kind of way. And I mean that in a very positive sense. I holiday regularly in Greece. I've climbed mountains there. Yes, I'm very experienced in the high mountains. I get lost. And Stella's point about Google Maps are useless there. And to go out, it was actually 40 degrees, not 36 degrees. To go out in 40-degree heat in the last few days, in the Mad Dogs and Englishmen, in the middle of the day, no Greek would do that in the month of Sundays, is just a tremendous tragedy. Heart goes out to his 4 children.
Of course. He hasn't officially been identified yet, but the local mayor on Simi has said it's him. Apparently, according to PA, Press Association news agency, British journalists and a hospitality worker were the first to find the body. It was discovered beneath a fence that runs around a bar 30 foot down from those cliffs. Stella, from the Greek perspective, there was a lot of talk about how the authorities there would want to put a lot of effort into finding him. There was a huge search operation. There was drones, helicopters, we had sniffer dogs. They were, of course, acting in the interests of tourism, but of course, tribute to the Greek authorities. They have put in a sterling effort here. What did it mean to them to make sure they found him?
I have talked to my family who lives back in Greece, and they were telling me it was constantly, you could see his face constantly on TV, and it was in all of the papers.
In Greek media?
In Greek media, everywhere. Everyone was obsessed with this because, as you say, of course, tourism is a very big thing in Greece, and obviously Greeks want tourists to believe that they're going to be safe. And frankly, because they are, like, Simi is a tiny island. Everyone there feels extremely safe. You would never even think that anything bad could happen. And this is why you heard from locals on this island who were saying, we cannot understand what could have possibly happened to him, because it's not the kind of place where any bad actors would be there. Like, you could tell that it was some kind of accident.
Yeah. OK, well, look, if it is indeed Michael Mosley, our thoughts, of course, go to his family, his children who are there, his wife, who he was holidaying with. A very sad development this morning. Should we move on to some politics? It is, of course, election season. Let's cover off the latest from the different parties. The manifestos, of course, being released next week. I think Labour's, Dennis, is on Thursday, and there's hints this morning in the Sunday newspapers that Sir Keir Starmer is promising a triple lock. So they're pledging not to increase national insurance, income tax or VAT.
Makes complete sense. It's what Gordon Brown did at the beginning of 1997, and it absolutely guaranteed Labour a very big victory then and 3 terms in government. I think it's a good thing too, because it will force the civil servants, especially the Treasury, to get out of their Tory boxes and work out how to reorganise bits of the British economy so you don't have to keep running to people to put up their taxes, which is a hallmark of the Conservatives in recent years.
Charlie, is this an attempt to kind of stunt the £2,000 line that's been coming out of Tory HQ in recent days?
Well, I'm chuckling to myself, first of all, the thought that the civil service are in the pockets of the Tory party. I think that's, having been probably the one, or the only one on this panel that's been closest to government over the last couple of years, I think that's for the birds. They're not Tories at all. If not, most people, I think, would prefer the alternative to the Tories in government if you were working in the civil service. But put that to one side for a second. I don't think it is. I think it's a pledge to not raise, which seems perfectly reasonable to a degree because we've got the highest tax burden. But what they're not committed to is cutting taxes, which is what the Conservatives, when they launched the manifesto on Tuesday, 2 days before Labour, which I think is penciled in for, I think will set out tax cuts because the economy has turned a corner.
Well, they've got no choice, have they? I mean, it's the highest tax burden in, well, since the Second World War.
Well, so. You're quite right. So the choice is very clear. Do you want to have your taxes effectively frozen at that higher tax rate? Because Labour say they're not going to increase it, but they're not committed to cutting taxes. They're not committed to anything, it sounds to me at the minute.
Stella?
But the Conservative Party are going to cut your taxes.
All hot air from the Labour
They're not going to say that they're going to increase your taxes, but they've already done 26 times in the last Parliament. Also,
but answer his point. Labour
point?
are saying they won't increase tax, but there's no pledges to reduce tax.
Okay,
from Labour.
Okay, sure, but with the same calculations that Rishi Sunak came up with a fantastical £2,000 number, the Spectator ran the same calculations on the Conservative Party's pledges, and it saw that actually it would be £3,000 under the Conservative Party. So as far as I'm concerned, guys, voters, you are saving £1,000 if you vote for the Labour Party.
I would take the Treasury's figures, which were part of that document that was published under the Tories in the Spectator magazine. As much as I love the Spectator, I think their calculations might be slightly right compared to the Treasury. No, they didn't. They didn't. This is make the case, and I'll happily.
Okay, so did the Treasury not write a letter which said that these calculations are basically spinned in a political way, and this is not accurate?
That's the key point.
No, it's
I mean,
not.
I know you were mocking civil servants at the Treasury.
No.
The head of the Treasury explicitly said, don't trust any political party that praise us in aid, in support, or whatever line they're taking. And that became the great Sunak lie, followed by the great Sunak D-Day debacle. I'm looking forward to next week's kind of comic show from the Prime Minister.
What is frustrating, and full disclosure, I mean, I don't work for the Conservatives, I don't work for the government anymore, but in every election you have these figures that are produced. It is the case, and I'm sad that no minister has been able to articulate it properly, hopefully as well as I might be able to, that as part of that 27 listings that came from the Conservative Party, 21 were costed by the Treasury. There is no dispute about that. The Treasury have not denied it.
OK. Let's move on slightly. We're going to stick with the Tories. Dennis McShane, I have to say to you, though, that it's for the birds to say that the civil service is somehow, aligned.
No, I didn't mean that. They have their own interests. I believe in the blob theory of the civil service, completely and utterly. The HMT, about a lot of old Etonians who are looking to become bank directors in their 40s and 50s, and they run the economy. No other country in the world has a finance ministry looking after the books, very important job, and it's the same as the economic and growth ministry.
I think
that's our mistake.
They're ideologically aligned. They're more ideologically aligned with the kind of person who becomes a Conservative politician.
I just can't buy it. I can't buy it. Also, the civil service are never in their offices. They're striking or threatening to strike over being in the office for 2 days a week, so not very Conservative at all. Sticking with the Tories, announcements this morning about welfare reform from Rishi Sunak. Can you tell us more about that?
Quite right, too. The welfare bill has ballooned, and for too long, I think we've still focused on what people... or we should be focused on what people can do, what they can't do. And it's always important to get people into work, to move people into those jobs where there are a number of jobs that need to be filled. It's making sure that there is the element of fairness on the taxpayer, but also on fairness to the individual, that you don't remain on the welfare state when you can be in a job that needs doing.
Stella?
Brilliant idea by Mel Stride. How did we not think about it? So the idea is they are going to take people who are on disability benefits. They're going to take them off their disability benefits. They haven't exactly explained how they're going to do that. And they're going to reinvest that money back into more spaces for talking therapy, which is great. I'm all pro talking therapy. We should have more therapy for everyone. But I would like someone to explain to me how exactly someone who is on disability benefits is going to be transformed into a construction worker or someone who can take a social care position through talking therapy.
Well, Stella, the analysis is, the data shows that lots of that cohort who aren't working are suffering with anxiety or depression or what the Conservatives previously called, sort of milder mental health disabilities, not physical disabilities that stop them physically getting out there. So, I mean, something needs to be done. There is...
So a person like that will make an excellent social care worker who you would trust to look after your grandmother overnight, right?
I mean, the argument is, Dennis, that people need to, dare I say it, I'm going to get cancelled on a Sunday, man up and, maybe do something for themselves to improve their mental health.
I think the term is person up.
Person up, there we go.
So, Ben.
Of course.
But look, the Tories have had, I just did my calculation, 5,110 days to solve this problem, because the sick note problem was there in 2010. It was there in 2015 when they booted out the Liberal voters booted out the Liberal Democrats. They brought in quite draconian measures, but nonetheless, nothing has happened. And then up pops dear old Mel Stride. He's the minister for saying, oh, I'm sorry we didn't do it in the last 5,000 days, but my goodness, we'll do it tomorrow. No, it's completely incredible.
OK. All right, on the Sunday Express this morning, Nigel Farage is there in his full glory, saying that Reform are now the real opposition, Charlie Rowley. Conservatives consigned to the dustbin of history, he suggests. And the next 6 years, he will be moulding Reform into the real opposition to what he argues will be a Labour government.
Well, he'll have a lot of time in his hands over the next 5 years. I'm sure he may go on to become a Member of Parliament, but he won't be the official opposition. That will be a party that remains to be seen until the 4th of July. And the Conservative Party will hold many more seats than Reform, and, as will Labour.
Are you not concerned about this polling from YouGov a couple of days ago, putting Reform on 17 points, just 2 points behind the Conservatives, Labour on 40?
Yes, I am worried, because I want to see the Tory party ahead in the polls than currently what it is. I want to see the Tory party win the next election. But in order to do that, the Tory party has to come together. It has to cut taxes. It has to deal with the problem of immigration. It has to continue to grow the economy, which it's done. So it's got a lot of achievements to its name, which the Tory party, I'm afraid, just by, I think, being typically British, doesn't shout about its achievements.
Stella, a really interesting line from this interview with Farage in the Express. He says he's on a mission to build a mass movement for lasting change, and he warned he's ready to stage a hostile takeover of the Tories if he wins a seat in Clacton on July the 4th.
I mean, he comes out and says it. Wow, I have to give it to him. It is a very good strategy. That's exactly how you should do it. I'm very impressed by Charlie, though. I feel like you have gone from the denial phase over to the bargaining phase of how badly exactly the Conservatives are going to do. Next is depression, which is, I assume, why Mel Stride is suddenly so invested into talking therapy, because there will be a lot of very, very sad Tories come July 5th.
But Ben, if I may, the YouGov poll was very interesting and very dramatic. I mean, in the trade, we call it anything you want, Gov, from that outfit when it comes to polling. But the 3 polls today by other equally professional pollsters using different methods all have Reform at 10%, which seems to me to be about right. They're not going to win. You can't win a parliamentary seat with 10% of the vote. Maybe Nigel Farage will do it in Clacton. I'm not even terribly sure about that. He's a celebrity figure and he commands celebrity headlines. And unbelievably, the BBC put him on the 7-party debate on Thursday night as if he's been leading a major party in recent years. So good luck to Nigel. But the real question, the only question is, the Tories after the election, do they double down into the madness of the last few years, or, as in the past, come back to the centre of Britain?
Yeah. OK. All right. Charlie, Stella, Dennis, thank you very much. Good start. Still plenty to come this Sunday, including wine and gin, of course. It could get a bit messy. And also some theatre on the way. But first, after the break, we'll be getting to the bottom of why dentists have now reportedly become the hardest NHS service to access. I'll be speaking to the king of celebrity smiles, Dr. Richard Marquez. Stick with us. This is Ben Leo on Sunday, stepping in for Michael Portillo. Back in a sec.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
The Princess of Wales has said she's excited by a new report on prioritising early childhood, a cause, as we know, that she's closely associated with.
Yes, the task force findings claim that the UK could reap £45.5 billion in economic benefits if firms prioritise early childhood.
Well, let's talk about this now with our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. Good morning, Cameron.
Good morning.
I suppose it's characteristically Catherine, isn't it, to say she doesn't want to distract from this report by sort of people talking about her health. But we should start probably by saying she said she's not feeling well enough to come and talk about this in public, but sort of saying she's watching it, keeping a close eye from behind closed doors.
Yeah, absolutely. This should not be seen as a return to work by the Princess of Wales, but I have been told she's A, read the report and B, been briefed on it. But this all stems really from her work when she started being a working member of the royal family, where she was working closely with people suffering from addiction, mental health problems. And what she found is all of these issues tend to stem from a poor start in life, so the first 5 years of a child's life. So in January 2023, she set up Shaping Us, this awareness campaign for the early years. 2 months later, she convened the business task force. So 8 members of big businesses across the UK, and over a generation, that could add, as they claim, more than £40 billion to the UK economy each year. We spoke to Peter Grigg yesterday. He's the chair of Home Starts UK, a charity which supports young families. Let's hear what he said about the Princess's role in this.
It's been a real driving force behind the report and everything it's done. And when we've spent time with the Royal Foundation, what it does, it reminds everyone that this is really important work and early childhood matters, that more businesses should get involved, that more charities are out there for people who want to do more to support families and children. So it's been a wonderful experience.
The People's Channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians and the media, but actually, it's about you.
And we won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear
all sides
as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's election channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Ben Leo here, stepping in, not sticking in, for Michael Portillo on this Sunday. One of you on gbnews.com/yoursay said, "Sticking it in for Michael Portillo? Ben, you naughty boy." Very cheeky, turning the air blue on a Sunday. Someone else said, "Well said, Ben. Mental health issues have become the new bad back, accepting, of course, that there are genuine people suffering mental health issues, but they are drowned out under the tsunami of false claims." And Susan, good morning to you, Susan. You say, "Ben, you were correct. The phrase is man up. Don't give in to the left. Our language is the second oldest in the world." Now, how's your smile looking? Because recent polling suggests dentistry has become the hardest NHS service for patients to access, within NHS treatments still 15% lower than pre-pandemic levels. So a YouGov survey reveals that more than 70% of Brits describe seeing the dentist as difficult, compared with 64% for GPs and 42% for A&E services. One British man, get this, he even took to flying 10,000 miles for dental care, saying the extra time and money spent was far less hassle than trying to get an appointment on the NHS. I mean, it's a sad state of affairs. And a shocking 1/5 of UK adults have also admitted to trying DIY dentistry, including the old trick of tying string around a wobbly tooth and slamming it in the door so it comes out. So, should people be more careful when taking their teeth into their own hands? To discuss this now, I'm joined by the king of celebrity smiles, Dr. Richard Marquez, who, as you stepped into the studio, good morning, Richard, I said, that's a smile to remember.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what's going on here? Is it a problem with migration? Is it funding? Is there too many people here? Why aren't people seeing NHS dentists?
Yeah, well, I mean, that is one of the problems. Obviously, population growth makes it much more difficult for people to access NHS services, but they need to then catch up on the other side with dental services and increase the amount of dentists and access to dentistry, and especially NHS dentistry, obviously.
Because I tried to get... I mean, what's the cut-off? First of all, let's be clear. What's the cut-off age for free dentistry on the NHS?
So it is 18 years old, but there are exemptions around maternity, pregnancy. There's some free care around pregnancy, and also for people who are on, obviously, welfare cover and things like that, so, and some pensioners as well. So there are some exemptions even beyond 18, but otherwise, mostly it's 18, and then you have to...
And this is a particular problem with the younger generation. We saw some data a few weeks back about the number one cause for child admission into A&E is tooth decay. I mean, that was shocking when I read it.
It's really bad, and what happens is people, kids with multiple decayed teeth, they basically have to be put under general anaesthetic, and then all those rotted teeth have to be extracted under general anaesthetic. Wow. So it's a really bad situation.
I've got two young children. I've got a 4.5-year-old and a 16-month-old.
Oh.
I always wondered, when the milk teeth go, or they break, or they suffer decay, or they're crooked from a dummy, for example, will the new teeth that grow back, will they be crooked, basically?
Yeah,
say from a dummy?
Yeah, there's two things. Basically, if you have decayed baby teeth, it can sometimes affect the teeth underneath because you get infections and that can damage the underneath teeth. And then secondly, as you said, like, if those baby teeth start going crooked, then the adult teeth start going crooked as well.
Right.
So it is important to look after the baby teeth. It's really important.
So the main concern here from a lot of campaigners is the children. It's mine as well as a parent. And Dame Andrea Leadsom, the former health minister, she's floated the idea of a £10 a month dental insurance scheme to cover checkups. What would you like to see in terms of policy from political parties in this general election period? Because as far as I recall, we've not heard much about what they're going to do about reforming NHS dentistry.
Yeah, I think they should make it, more central to the chat and more central to their policies. Definitely should be up there. It's a real concern of the constituents. They really want to hear how we're going to solve this NHS dental crisis.
And I spend a lot of time in America where, of course, they famously have very lovely teeth and they take the mick out of the British teeth. Is it just a stereotype? Is it a myth that Brits have bad teeth? Or how do we compare to the rest of the world in terms of not only just aesthetics and looks, but also, decay and general teeth and gum health?
Well, what they say is, in America, obviously, there's some amazing smiles, but also there is people in poverty who don't have great teeth in America. So it's not completely that British teeth are bad. They're getting a lot better. People are becoming more aware. But we do need access to dental services, for kids and adults to just keep on that track and get a better British smile.
What do we do? I mean, can I ask? Sorry to be intrusive.
Yeah.
Are your teeth? I mean, if you can just give us a nice pearly smile to the camera. There we go. Are they veneers? Are they real teeth?
They are. I had some work done on my teeth because I had an accident when I was young. Yeah, I fell off a bicycle and damaged my teeth.
Oh, wow.
I had to have.
So some teeth came out?
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
How many teeth came out? What happened?
One tooth come fully out, and then I had to have everything treated. I had a lot of work on my teeth, but I think, because I had all that work done, that's one thing which made me want to do dentistry and kind of help other people with their teeth.
Interesting. So that inspired your route into dentistry?
It did, definitely.
Okay, turning pain into triumph. What do you make of these stories about the so-called turkey teeth, where lots of Brits, including the gentleman I referred to in the introduction, flying thousands of miles abroad to get dentistry work done? I've seen some absolutely horror pictures of these so-called turkey teeth done by dodgy dentists in Turkey, in Istanbul. What do you make of this craze? Because more and more Brits are seemingly going down that route instead of sticking with UK dentists.
Yeah, well, what we say firstly is that you can find good and bad dentists everywhere, but basically it is pretty bad. Often in this Turkey dentistry, they really kind of over-prepare the teeth. I don't know if you've seen those pictures of the
don't they shave them down to pegs?
Right down, and it can be a really bad situation because when people have problems, they've come back here and then the dentists can't really treat them properly, and then they advise them they have to go back to Turkey. They can end up losing teeth, getting infections. So it can be a really bad situation. But at the same time, I do feel for them if they don't have access to NHS dentists.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think half the time, though, I think they're just looking for that aesthetic look. I mean, trying to achieve your level of aesthetics, I'm sure, Dr. Marquez. Well, look, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure to be with you. OK, coming up, we'll be wining and dining as we look ahead to English Wine Week with Jessica Summer, the founder of Mouse and Grape. This is Ben Leo on Michael Portillo this Sunday. He's away for 1 week only. He's back next week. He's been celebrating his birthday. Well deserved. We'll be back in just a tick. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan Tonight. Weekends from 9 p.m.
England's new patron saint, Gary Lineker, a man holier and more virtuous than Mother Teresa and Gandhi combined, strikes again. Never one to miss the chance of some moral posturing, goal-hanging PR opportunist Lineker has spoken out about tonight's Champions League final. He tweeted the following: "This is the first time I'll be cheering for Real Madrid in a Champions League final." The German side Dortmund have signed a 3-year sponsorship deal with weapons manufacturer Rheinmetall. Now, Gary Lineker is not a stupid person. Following a stellar career on the pitch, it was a storied transition to broadcasting. And let me tell you, he's worth every penny of that £1.3 million a year of licence fee payers' cash to introduce football clips. So how did it escape the attention of this bright man that our democracies and our freedoms are protected and defended by the weapons produced like companies such as Rheinmetall? In fact, we should big up, not cancel, Rheinmetall, who have produced some of the armaments which are now helping Ukraine. Well, I'm very confused because I thought Gary Lineker was very supportive of Ukraine and their battle for survival. But now he wants to take their weapons away. I'm very, very confused. After all, they're going to need weapons with which to defend themselves. They can't fight by sending off tweets like Gary does. Now, many people love Gary Lineker. He has over 8 million followers on Twitter. This idol of the progressive left battled HMRC in court to reduce his tax bill by almost £5 million. This latest Lineker rant about war is weapons-grade nonsense. Sorry, Gary, but you're firing blanks.
The People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Ben Leo in for Michael Portillo on this Sunday. Hope you're having a terrific weekend. Just one comment from Anita on gbnews.com/your say. You say, sorry, if you ask a professional dentist, teeth are not supposed to be brilliant white teeth. It's a vanity thing. Don't get me wrong, it does look good, but not exactly true. What do you think? Keep the comments coming in. Now, we move on, perhaps to my favourite segment of this 2-hour show. English Wine Week is annually celebrated from the 3rd Saturday in June, and this year it will take place from the 15th of June to the 23rd. It, of course, celebrates English wines and promotes homegrown wines all across the UK. During this week, some of the best vineyards in the UK will welcome the public for tours and tastings, while local restaurants make it a point to pair rich English wines with delicious food. Joining me now to share her hot tips for finding the best tipples across the UK is founder of Mouse & Grape, Jessica Summer. And Jessica, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm very pleased to see you've brought in an array of not just wines, but cheese as well.
I have, yes, I have.
What's that? Is that a camembert?
So this is actually a British cheese. So it's called Baron by God.
OK, so
which
British
is,
cheese as well.
British style of brie. And then we've got a classic English Stilton, yes. So
Great.
English Wine Week has got to be with English cheese as well.
The perfect morning. And in terms of the booze, what have we got?
Yeah, so for English Wine Week, I just wanted to talk about the traditional sparkling English wines that we have here. So we rival champagne in terms of our English wines, and in some cases better, to be honest. And it's made in the same grapes as traditional champagne.
Yeah.
So you've got your Chardonnay, your Pinot Noir and your Pinot Meunier, and in the same methods. But what you also have in the UK, which is very exciting, is people being a bit more experimental with their wines. And there is more a trend now for more natural, low-intervention wines.
What does that mean, low intervention?
So when you have a classic wine, so you can see here, this is a sparkling still wine, but it's clear and it's got, it's as you would expect expect a wine to be. So there are processes that winemakers go through. With a natural wine, there's low intervention. So the grapes are basically left to ferment, and then you don't do any, it's called refining, where you kind of pull the wine through and then it filters the wine, essentially. So with natural wines, you might get some sediment, it might be slightly cloudy, but you get much more purity of fruit flavour, as they say.
Excellent. OK, so you've pre-poured some in true Blue Peter style. What have we got here in this one?
So actually, we have here some wine which is different because this is wine made from apples. So it is like cider, but made in the traditional champagne way, but with apples. And this is a combination from my Father's Day hampers. And obviously Father's Day on Sunday, we know dads love cheese and
Next
wine.
weekend, right? Father's Day? I'm in a
is.
bit of hot water for Father's Day because I'm unfortunately going to Amsterdam with my best friend instead of sticking around and celebrating with my wife and kids. So sorry about that. But needs a must.
Needs a must,
What's this one here, then?
So
Can I
this
get
one
stuck
here,
into that?
so please do. So this is Gospel Green, this one here.
So this is the apple one?
This is the apple one, exactly. And it's a lower alcohol than traditional champagnes. This is 8.4. This one is 12. And yeah, it's absolutely delicious.
It is quite cidery. If I didn't know that was a wine, I would have said it's a cider.
Yeah, well, it basically is a cider. And if you have some with this cheese.
Come on in.
There we go.
I remember years ago when I worked at my local newspaper down in Brighton. I'm from Sussex. We've got lots of brilliant English wine vineyards down there. We've got Bolney, the Bolney estate. Timber, is that Sussex?
Yes, yeah.
I remember back then, that was about 15 years ago, that we were, England anyway, was mooted as, you know, fast coming up on the tails of France, of French wine production. What changed over that period? Was it just the change in weather or the climate? What's happened?
I think a mixture of things. Definitely the change in weather. The climate change is good in terms of us for grape growing in the season. But also I think there's been a real progression in English winemakers kind of being true to the terroir, which is basically the environment of the grape growing. And there's a real excitement and a buzz around making wine and having English wine as well. And the still wines are also fantastic too. So we're known for our sparkling, but still too. And I'm really pleased to see in the supermarkets now, you have a range of English wines there. And you mentioned in the intro with restaurants, it's amazing to be able to have British food paired with British-made wines and much better for sustainability.
It sounds very Brexity, sort of, you know, very patriotic.
Well, you have French wines with French cheeses and with French food, Italian wine, and that's a really nice way to also, celebrate what we produce.
I've sunk this one.
Yes, you have.
Let's move on.
So, Ben, this
Good thing I've had a large breakfast, by the way. I had a few croissants and some porridge, so I'll be protected from getting dizzy in a bit. What's this one here?
So this here, it's an iced apple. Wine.
Apple.
Yeah, so you can get iced wine, which is basically the grapes are left on the vine and they're frozen and the juice is more concentrated. This is exactly the same process, but with apples.
OK.
So
So what should I do first, the cheese or the wine?
So if you take a sip of the wine...
OK.
This is honestly so delicious. It's like...
Can you believe I get paid for this?
It's like apple pie, this wine. Like, it's magical.
Very sweet.
It is, yeah. And then if you have it with a piece of cheese, Ben, so this is like your classic sweet and salty combination that we know really works together. So get stuck in.
I don't know if this makes sense, but the texture's quite thick as well. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And the reason for that is the higher sugar content.
Right.
And also the alcohol too. So on this one, it's 10%, which still, if you know about your wines, if you get a port wine, the alcohol's going to be a lot higher. So this is a really nice alternative and fantastic with desserts and then obviously,
I was going to say,
cheese.
it almost reminds me of port. Maybe in a lesser
it's a fortified wine, so it will have that aspect, and so yeah, really delicious. And with mouse and grape, what I obviously specialise in my cheese and wine pairing combinations, but the hampers as well. And as I mentioned, this is a combination from my Father's Day hampers.
So what else is in the hampers? That sounds a great idea, by the way. If my wife's watching.
That's what you'd like. Yeah, so with the hampers, you get my mouse and grape tasting guide booklet, as well as my tasting notes. And then you also get some crackers and some chutney, and it's all available from mouseandgrape.com.
Great. And just briefly, what's the future of UK wine? Are we going to keep expanding exponentially? Because, you know, plenty of viewers, I'm sure, who will be watching at home will say anything to get one up on the French. So if it continues at this rate, I'm sure they'll be very happy.
I think you will do. We had an absolutely huge harvest last year, so you're going to be seeing a much higher volume of English wine available. I also think you're going to be seeing more exports into other countries. Norway buys a lot of British wines. And I think also it's amazing that you can travel to these vineyards. And what I really love, there's amazing ones like...
tours
you can do tours, yeah, and you can go to... From London, it's very easily accessible to get to Balfour, for example, in Kent. You can get to Denbies in Surrey, and there's ones all around, really. And also, I mean, gorgeous in Dorset, in Devon. So, and they're really beautiful. They've got lovely restaurants, and it's a really nice day out.
Yeah, great stuff. Jessica Summer, Mouse and Grape, thank you so
welcome.
much. Yeah, forget the continent. Get yourselves down to those wine estates in Kent, Sussex, Bolney, down my neck of the woods. Thank you very much. Right, let's move on. Still ahead, it's nearly time to take the stage with... Sorry, I've got cheese stuck in my gums. Very classy. It's very nearly time to take the stage with Stefan Kyriasis to hear about all the latest escapades in the auditorium. This is Ben Leo in for Michael Portillo on GB News. Back in just a tick.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We'll see a mixed bag of weather across the UK today, some sunshine, some showery rain and temperatures remaining on the cool side for the time of year too. We've got some more persistent outbreaks of rain working their way in from Northern Ireland southeastwards, across southwestern parts of Scotland, into parts of northern England and eventually the north of Wales as we head into the afternoon today. Towards the north and northeast of that is brighter, but with a scattering of blustery showers, whereas across southern England, particularly down towards the southwest, plenty of sunshine, just a gradual influx of cloud as we head through the day here. Towards the north and northeast, it stays chilly for the time of year. Temperatures no better than 12 to 14 Celsius, peaking though in the southeast at 20 Celsius, 68 in Fahrenheit. So towards the end of the day, we'll see a continuation of sunshine and showers across the north and northeast of Scotland. Still that chilly north to northwesterly wind to contend with as well. Then we run into that area of more persistent rain across Northern Ireland, into parts of southwest Scotland, northwest England and North Wales. Whereas further south, it's a brighter picture still to end the day. Some cloud feeding in from the north, so the best of the sunshine reserved for the southwest of England. And in the sunshine here, temperatures still into the high teens Celsius. Heading through the evening into the overnight period on Sunday, those outbreaks of rain across Northern Ireland and the southwest of Scotland continue southeastwards to affect all parts of England and Wales as we head through the overnight period. Notice some outbreaks of rain turning quite heavy in places too, whereas further north across Scotland and Northern Ireland we go into clearer skies with showers and turning quite chilly here. Could even see a touch of frost by Monday morning on one or two sheltered spots. As for Monday itself, well, outbreaks of rain gradually push away towards the south and east of England and Wales, leaving brighter skies across the whole of the UK, coupled though with quite a few showers. The showers most widespread towards the north and northwest, again accompanied by quite a brisk north to northwesterly wind. And wherever you are, those temperatures struggle still for the time of year, no better than 12 or 13 Celsius in a few places towards the north of the UK, up to 17 Celsius at the very best towards the south and southeast.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. GB News, Britain's election channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Ben Leo here in for Michael Portillo this Sunday. Hope you're having a lovely weekend. Some comments on gbnews.com/yoursay. One from Rob, who says, Ben is drinking again. Not surprising, really, the way Arsenal chucks the league away. Yeah, I feel you, Rob. Lee, you say, GB News has been having some parties recently. Gin the other day, wine today. What's tomorrow? Whiskey? We can only hope, Lee. And old bloke in the corner, this made me laugh. You said, wine in the UK Bring on the climate change. Can't wait to taste Chateau Glasgow, a mix of Chardonnay and Thunderbird. Very good. Right, another busy week for the theatre goers, and Stefan Kyriasis, as always, is one of those. Stefan, were you spirited away by any specific performances
It was
this week?
lots of drama this week, so quite heavy stuff. Mixed bag, and we're going to kick off with Boys from the Black Stuff, which was Alan Bleasdale's 1982 big kind of TV drama with people like Julie Walters and Bernard Hill. That's been reinvented, and that's just come to London. We've got a little clip here to show you what it's all about.
Kiss it, job. Go on, kiss it. Go on, kiss it if you've got it.
This is Britain in 1982.
Unemployment is a growth industry.
People can't look far ahead these days. Not when you're frightened, not when you're scared.
There's a particular group we've been keeping tabs on.
Looks good fun.
Yeah, it's very entertaining, but it's also very much a period piece, and I have read some comments. I've been reading lots of Liverpool writers about it as well, and Alan Bleasdale has not given an interview for like 20 years and said this is all still relevant, working class, people desperate for meaning, desperate for work. But I've been reading comments with people sort of locally as well saying, why can't we have something about now? And I did feel watching it that it was very much a period piece, like even some of the comedy. And the guy that's replacing, I mean, Bernard Hill is very hard to top, but Barry Sloane has a very good go at it, and it's the whole, giz a job, giz it, into everyone's face, whether it's a priest or a man doing the white lines around a football pitch or whatever it might be. He thinks he can do it. He's terrible at everything, but he's also having this whole, he's like this big head-butting man having an existential crisis as well about, he's just, I want to be seen. He's desperately cares about his children. There's a painful twist at the end about that, but it didn't quite land for me, and the humour is a little bit broad and it's a little bit sitcom-y, and I don't quite think, for me, they sort of got it all together. I enjoyed it, but I kind of was expecting more, and I don't know that it does complete respect to the original show.
Sounds like the plight of most modern men, just striving to be seen, trying to find their purpose.
Well, we've got a lot more of that now. The next one we've got up is A View from a Bridge, which has got the very great Dominic West, who absolutely blew me away. I know him as this he's a good actor, he's always there, you see him in everything. He's superb in this, and we've got another little clip to show you guys as well.
Right. What is it? The guy ain't right.
You're just jealous.
Of him? Boy, you don't think much of me.
When am I going to be a wife again, Eddie?
Here I come. Taking her for a ride.
All right, that is her ride. I don't know what you want from me.
Is great. You can see this one's on the Haymarket. We should mention Boys from the Black Stuff is on at the Garrick. It's starting next week, and it's on until August the 3rd. But this one, Dominic West plays their longshoreman, 1950s New York on the docks. Arthur Miller play. Working men just want to survive, look after their family. And he's kind of, there's a bit sort of, it's a bit A Streetcar Named Desire as well. Stanley Kowalski. It's this big, bluff man, and everything's fine as long as he's lord of his kingdom. But his wife, who is fantastic there, played by Kate Fleetwood, her cousins come over from Italy. So there's a lot about immigration, and in that way, actually, this one is relevant. You hear the stories when the cousins come over. Their children are starving, they're sick. There is nothing. Italy is a beautiful country, but there is nothing for people post-war. So it's much more resonant, actually, this one, even though it's set a lot longer ago. He and his wife are raising her niece, who's lost her parents. And him and the niece, Catherine, they're very interdependent, and it's very loving, very gorgeous, but then the layers are peeling away when the younger, handsome cousin and the niece start getting together. And he feels threatened, challenged. His whole world is falling apart. The person actually he most loves, more than his wife, is being taken away from him. There's messiness, whether even there's something with the young man as well and him. There's a lot going on. Every single actor on the stage was so invested, so immersed, so believable. It builds to this sort of tragic ending. I promise you, it's one of those brilliant moments in the theatre when you could hear a pin drop.
Wow.
Absolute silence, And I really loved it. And some of the critics have said it's not dark enough. I loved the softness at the beginning because then when you see the man fall apart, and Dominic West is sensational.
Love him. I think he's a great actor. Of course, The Crown. Jim McNulty in HBO's The Wire.
Yeah.
The Affair as well. Yeah, I love him.
To see him
in The Crown.
on stage, what a magnificent actor. So I absolutely love this. I really recommend this.
OK, and one more in your bag of
We're
tricks.
quickly going into Eddie Izzard. She's got a new one-woman show. Quick little clip for that.
Thou shalt not go. Something is rotten in the state of Denmark. Though this be madness, yet there is method in it. From this time forth, my thoughts be bloody or be nothing worth.
This one's on at Riverside. It played to mixed reviews acclaim in New York. I saw her do One Woman, Great Expectations. Dickens is all about storytelling. She's great. She's a raconteur. She's an entertainer. Lots of nods and winks to the audience. Works for Dickens. Does not work for Shakespeare. You've got too many characters. It's always Eddie. And there's always these little nods and winks. I could see from that trailer, that's not brilliant acting. It really tests. It's beyond the limits of what she can do as an entertainer. Not good. Very disappointing. Enough of these one-person shows, please.
Eddie Izzard, of course,
No.
you know, rumoured to be standing in some seats somewhere, who knows, but very controversial nonetheless. Stefan, thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure.
Appreciate it, doing all the hard work for us. Now, you're watching Ben Leo on GB News this Sunday, stepping in for Michael Portillo on Britain's News Channel. This concludes the first hour of the programme, but don't go away, as after the break, we'll be discussing the Israel raid in Gaza that saw 4 hostages rescued, and more on the sad discovery of a body in the search for TV doctor Michael Mosley in Greece. Stick with us here on GB News. Back in just a tick.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So a bit of a cloudy start for many of us this morning, but there is some sunshine in places due to high pressure situated down towards the south of the UK. But it's these weather fronts that will push in from the northwest, turning quite rainy and cloudy for many of us overnight tonight. That area of rain is reaching parts of Northern Ireland through the rest of this afternoon, so turning quite cloudy here with some outbreaks of rain. The best of the sunshine likely to be across the southwest of England, with some dry weather here. Further north, some sunshine, but plenty of showers pushing in from the north through the rest of this afternoon, and feeling quite chilly here in that northerly breeze. Temperatures only 13 or 14 degrees. A little warmer further south, but still a little below average for the time of year. As we head through the rest of Sunday evening, that area of rain does continue for Northern Ireland, and the showers continue for parts of Scotland as well, likely to be heavy in places with some hail and thunder mixed in. There'll be some brightness between those showers through the rest of the evening, but for Northern Ireland, a very damp end to the day on Sunday. Outbreaks of heavy rain persisting through the first part of the night. Outbreaks of rain as well for parts of Wales and into central and southern parts of England, and generally quite a cloudy end to the day here for many places. That area of rain across Northern Ireland, as I mentioned, pushes its way southeastwards through Sunday evening and into the start of Monday, but it will be turning drier across Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland through the early hours of Monday morning, and under those clear skies likely to turn quite chilly as well. We could see a touch of grass frost in places. Generally staying a little bit milder though across much of England and Wales under that cloud and rain. Temperatures here around 12 or 13 degrees to start on Monday. So for Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland, a dry, bright but quite chilly start to the day. Plenty of showers continuing to push in from the north, but quite a cloudy and damp day, particularly for eastern parts of England. Maybe some difficult driving conditions here through the morning rush hour. Plenty of showers then through Monday afternoon, and temperatures still a little disappointing for the time of year. 18 or 19 in the south and 10 to 12 in the north.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's our summer spectacular. 3 top prizes that have to be won. There's cash. £15,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like this summer. Plus a brand new iPhone 15 with a set of Apple AirPods. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also treat you to some fun in the sun with £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction this summer. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians and the media, but it's actually about you. We won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear all sides
as you make your decision in the run-up to polling day.
This is GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's election channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do. His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, and unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frothy in here, isn't it?
You'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to the second hour of Sunday with Ben Leo on GB News. Filling in for Michael Portillo today, actually. He's celebrating his birthday. Now, after news yesterday that 4 hostages held by Hamas were rescued by the Israeli Defense Forces, we'll be looking at a shocking poll released earlier in the week, which highlighted that a majority of British 18 to 24-year-olds do not believe that Israel should exist. We'll also be discussing reports that Sir Keir Starmer is planning to use the Labour manifesto to recognise Palestinian statehood. By the way, that was one of the demands of the Muslim vote, the organised group which was demanding the Labour Party bow down to 18 demands before they'd return their vote to Labour, particularly after the local elections. Journalist and broadcaster Jonathan Sakadotti will be with me to analyse whether this should be of concern to voters. And with 3.5 weeks left before the new government is formed, Labour are still far ahead in the polls. Reform UK are now mere points behind the Tories. Top pollsters Joe Twyman and Chief Executive of Ipsos Ben Page will be giving us their verdict on the halfway mark of this campaign. And finally, it's one of the Brits' favourite drinks and was one of the late Queen's favourite cocktails. We'll be celebrating World Gin Day, more booze. Hannah Harley-Young, creator and host of the podcast Crazy Sexy Food, will be here with some innovative gin-inspired recipes. All of that ahead, but first, here's your news headlines with Theo Chikomba.
Good afternoon, it's 1 minute past 12. I'm Theo Chikomba in the GB newsroom. A body has been found in the search for TV doctor Michael Mosley, who went missing on a Greek island earlier this week. An umbrella was discovered next to the body beneath a fence that runs around the bar on Agia Marina Beach. This area is surrounded by hilly, rocky terrain around 30 minutes walk from the village of Petty, where Dr. Michael Mosley was last seen. The search effort has spent days operating in dangerous conditions and high temperatures and has included police and firefighters equipped with drones. The Conservatives are to set out a plan to save around £12 billion a year by tightening the criteria for those who claim benefits. It would see more people told to find work, including some who receive disability payments. The Prime Minister has also pledged to tackle what he called sick note culture. It would mean GPs are no longer able to sign people off work, with specialist workplace health professionals given the responsibility instead. Labour called it a vague promise that won't get Britain healthy or bring benefits under control. But Work and Pension Secretary Mel Stride disagrees.
We will be having mental health teams for every single primary, secondary school in the country and FE college, and we'll have mental health hubs, 150 of those across the country for those aged between 11 and 25. And alongside that, Camilla, of course, what we're doing is reforming the gateway into benefits, which we know from what the OBR tells us, for example, with the work capability assessments, changes that we're making, that will mean 440,000 fewer people on those long-term benefits going forward.
Meanwhile, Labour is pledging to alleviate some of the pressure on overcrowded prisons with a plan to add 14,000 new places. It would see some prisons classified as sites of national importance, so ministers can take control of planning decisions. It comes after some inmates were released early due to severe overcrowding across the prison system. The government previously promised to deliver 20,000 new prison places by mid-2020s. Just 6,000 have been created so far. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer says the problem in prisons is getting worse.
Well, I am critical of the Tories' early release scheme because what's happened is that they're releasing early prisoners who should still be in prison. And that's a shocking state of affairs, and like the many problems that they have left for the country, if we do come into power, we're going to have to fix it. Now, that will involve building prisons, that will involve taking tough decisions, because the money's been allocated for prison building, but there are tough decisions about planning and getting those prisons up. But what we can't have is a continuation of this total mess.
Time spent waiting for an ambulance would be cut under a plan set out by the Liberal Democrats. It would see an extra 1,000 staffed hospital beds, which the party said would help end excessive handover delays and patients having to wait in corridors for treatment. The party says the proposals would be funded through an upfront capital investment of £280 million to expand urgent treatment centres. Liberal Democrat leader Sir Ed Davey says urgent action is needed to fix Britain's healthcare.
We've seen in some parts of the country people's loved ones dying before the ambulances arrive. We've seen queues at hospitals as ambulances are waiting to hand over their patients, and something has to be done. We've got a comprehensive package to turn around this mess the Conservatives made of ambulance services, and that starts with extra beds, extra 1,000 beds in our hospitals, but it also links up to our care policies so people can come out of hospitals more quickly when they're ready to.
For the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now it's back to Ben.
Thank you, Theo, and welcome back to you watching on television and listening on radio. A quick couple of emails. Plenty of you on gbnews.com/your say saying, disgusting to see Ben Leo not challenging the theatre reviewer who kept referring to Eddie Izzard as she. Look, I don't think Eddie Izzard is a woman, but I'm not going to railroad a discussion on theatre to picking up on it. I'm just not going to do it. Catherine, you say turkey teeth dentistry needs to be more heavily condemned than is being discussed. It's borderline GBH, filing teeth down to such an extent that they then require root canal therapy or extraction. If you haven't seen some of the rather disturbing images and videos going around online of turkey teeth, then yeah, maybe try and stay away from it. Anyway, elsewhere this morning, amongst other top stories, we're reflecting on the latest sad breaking news on the discovery of a body in the hunt for missing TV doctor Michael Mosley in Greece. To discuss this, I have with me former advisor to Michael Gove, Charlie Rowley, former Labour advisor Stella Chadikidu, and former Labour MP Dennis McShane. Morning to you all. Sorry to be discussing this sad development again, but it's a story that's been raging since Wednesday, of course, when we heard that Dr. Mosley, who's a frequent doctor on programmes like This Morning, ITV, a best-selling author on health and fitness, he went for a walk on holiday. He went missing. Sadly, this morning, a body has been found at the bottom of some cliffs. Charlie Rowley, thoughts on this sad development?
Yes, it's an incredibly sad development, and as you say, I think local reports have suggested that it's Michael Mosley. Obviously, that hasn't been confirmed, and we don't know the ultimate cause of death, although we can speculate walking in such conditions where the temperature is high, where it's a long walking path. You can just imagine what might have happened, but until those details fully emerge, we won't actually know for sure. But it's incredibly sad, and the outpouring of love and affection by those in the media, colleagues right across the media, cultural sector, just show what a very, very nice and wonderful man that he was, and he'll be sorely missed.
Yeah, Stella, of course, not formally identified. The mayor of Symi, the Greek island where Dr. Mosley was holidaying, said that it is him. But what does this mean for the Greek people, the Greek authorities? It was quite a big story, I understand, over in the Mediterranean.
Exactly, Ben. It was a massive story. It was on all the front pages of all the Greek newspapers. It was constantly blasting on TV. So there is no chance that anyone who could have seen him on that island wouldn't have seen his face on their screens, because you have to understand, Symi is a very small island. It's literally one small village, like you can see it right now on your screens, and they would have a nice lunch in a restaurant, and then he went for a walk, he went for a hike. And you can see in your screens right now, the surrounding area is extremely dry, it's full of rocks. The reports were that it was 36 degrees heat, but I read in a Greek paper that it was actually some over 40 degrees heat. And he went for a walk at 1 or 2 p.m. in the afternoon. This is the hottest time of the day. He was holding an umbrella, but from the photos that I saw, he wasn't even holding a bottle of water or something like that. So what could have easily happened is he went on a walk, he got dizzy, and he had an accident. I have found myself on Greek islands many times trying to hike in the way that a lot of British people go for hiking. Remember, hiking is not the same on a Greek island as it is in a British forest.
Yeah, and actually, Dennis, there was a line in some of the reporting this morning suggesting that a Greek rescue worker, also tripped and fell in the mountainous area where Dr. Mosley was thought to be hiking, and he was stretchered off with his injuries.
Indeed. My thoughts and prayers, obviously, are with the family, the 4 children. But can we just give a small request to British tabloids? They now will be dumping every reporter, hiring private planes, every photographer. Don't give us ghoulish details. Somebody might have a selfie, an iPhone picture, perhaps of the body.
Well, hang on a minute. I used to work at The Sun for 7 years. I travelled the world chasing stories. I would have been sent on this, no doubt. There's no way they'd publish a picture of Dr. Mosley's body. That's just grotesque behaviour.
Oddly enough, The Sun might not, paradoxically.
Did you say oddly enough?
Well, only because it's got a...
Dennis, as if The Sun would ever publish that.
What? If The Sun never publishes an unpleasant and horrible pictures? No, but The Sun actually does behave as a mainstream paper. I'm more worried, thinking of social media, lots of things. I would just urge everybody to respect the family, to avoid sort of ghoulish reporting of any sort.
Yeah.
And that's all.
Yeah, OK, well, our thoughts are with Dr. Mosley's family. His 4 children are on the island of Symi. Officially not been identified just yet, but the local mayor there says that it is indeed missing Dr. Mosley. What should we do next? The Lib Dems, they've announced a rather canny policy. Take a look at this.
We've seen in some parts of the country people's loved ones dying before the ambulances arrive. We've seen queues at hospitals as ambulances are waiting to hand over their patients, and something has to be done. We've got a comprehensive package to turn around this mess the Conservatives made of ambulance services, and that starts with extra beds, extra 1,000 beds in our hospitals, but it also links up to our care policies so people can come out of hospitals more quickly when they're ready to.
So Lib Dem leader Sared Davey there announcing the Liberal Democrats' plans for 1,000 extra hospital beds. The proposals will be funded through upfront capital investment of £280 million. Yeah, Dennis McShane.
the Lib Dems all my life, or the Liberals before them, do come up with very, very nice policies. They always read like a good Guardian article, but they never win power. And one reason I think there's a problem with Ed Davey, he is for everybody the last relic, the last dinosaur of the people who went in with Nick Clegg to act as David Cameron's poodles. They brought in austerity, they increased student fees, they helped destroy manufacturing. And Lib Dems, Ben, always obsessed with having a plebiscite on membership of the European Union. So from my point of view, they're co-responsible for the disaster that Brexit has become. And I just think they should have found lots of younger women Lib Dem MPs. Ed's a nice man, I'm not criticising him personally, but he so resembles the era of post office sub-postmaster scandals, all the other things, privatisation of water, all the things we associate with that Lib Dem Tory coalition in the first half of the last...
Well, I remember chasing him down outside Parliament a few months back, maybe 6-7 months, and asking if women could have penises, which he said, of course they can. So there we go. What do you make, though, Charlie Rowley, of his campaign antics, Sir Ed Davey? He's, accused initially of being quite juvenile with these stunts on the water slide, riding a bike with his legs outstretched and pulling funny faces. But actually, some people are now saying it's all a bit of good fun. It's nice to see some personality.
Well, the first thing to say is that people remember why the coalition government with the Lib Dems and the Conservatives had to make some difficult decisions, such as cutting public spending, was because of the mess that Labour left behind. So people, I wouldn't give the Lib Dems too much of a hard time because they had to do some very difficult work with the Tories to clear up the mess and get the economy back on track.
What was their main... They U-turned on a massive... Was it the student fees?
Yes, yeah. And, a political... something politically that they'd held very in high regard that they had to row back on. But, when it's difficult in government and, whoever forms the next government will find that out.
Stella, have you been enjoying Sir Ed Davey's antics?
I think it's an astute... I'm going to give him some credit. It's a very astute policy on his part, or a strategy, rather, on his part, because as the Liberal Democrats, they will always struggle to get as much attention as they want. They cannot just announce something because people know that they're not going to be in government, so the media are not going to cover him unless he does something that will play well, either on TV or something that is headline-grabbing and they can take a good photo. So in terms of that, perhaps it is a good strategy for him to do this. He also, I would say, he sent Daisy Cooper for the seven-way debate that took place on Friday on the BBC. Even though her name recognition is not that good, I think she did a pretty good job, given how difficult it was. And, you can give him credit for that. He could have gone himself. I think there is an argument for why he should have been there. I understand why he didn't want to be there. But you can't say, Dennis was saying about, aren't there any women in the Liberal Democrats? Where there he is.
OK. Can I just add to that? Because I think the choreography matters. So, if you think of the image of Rishi Sunak outside Number 10 calling the election in the pouring rain, it's a bad look. Nobody wants to see that.
Well, and of course going to the Titanic quarter.
And the Titanic.
Being accused of, captaining a sinking ship.
And of course D-Day, which I'm sure we'll come on to, obviously, a massive own goal. What Ed Davey has been able to do is to be the counter to that, to be happy, smiley, doing all these fun things, which people sort of think, OK, quite fun, maybe slightly endearing, slightly mad for a middle-aged man to be going down a water slide. But then...
I agree.
But then to throw in a video about him being a carer and caring for his son and getting quite emotional, people can see the fun side to Ed Davey. They can also see the serious side to him. So as a campaign, as choreography in terms of setting out those events and those messages, I think he's actually done rather well.
OK, earlier on in the show, I mentioned Nigel Farage standing in Clacton. Here's a full list of those who have declared their candidacy in the Essex seat so far. So you've got Jovan Owusu-Nepal from the Labour Party, Giles Watling from the Conservative Party, Matthew Bensalem from the Liberal Democrats, Nigel, of course, for Reform UK, Natasha Osborne from the Green Party. The list of candidates isn't finalised as the deadline isn't until, I think it was yesterday, actually, or Friday, the deadline, wasn't it?
Yes.
It's online now. It's published in full on the GB News website. The channel has invited all of the candidates on for an interview as well. Just had to clear that for electoral Ofcom reasons. Moving on, Rishi Sunak's D-Day gaffe, it rumbles on, and the latest, of course, is that he ditched or swerved all media yesterday. Was that in direct response to the gaffe we saw on D-Day?
I'm not sure if it was in direct response to, but I probably would advise not to do any media following an apology that you've given to the nation. Give it a bit of time now. He got a ticking off from Penny Mordaunt at the debates on on Friday night. Rightly so. She spoke for the Conservative Party. I think she spoke for everybody. Rishi has had his telling off, as I say. But now the campaign goes on. So give it a day, give it a bit of breather. He had some images in a local fete at a local fair where he was...
Charlie, let me read you this tweet from Nadine Dorries 13 hours ago. She says, "I've always said that Lord David Cameron was popped into the Lords and into a senior ministerial role post for a reason. I thought maybe it was to replace Rishi Sunak at an earlier stage. Rumours around tonight are that Rishi Sunak is about to fall on his sword. Is Lord Cameron about to replace Rishi Sunak?"
I don't think that's true, and I'm sure Nadine might think that's
what do you make of Nadine?
The inner workings of Michael Gove, no doubt, given the plot that she's written, available in all good second-hand shops. And, I like Nadine. This is the thing. I like Nadine. She's good fun. She won't know me personally, but I've watched her, I've observed her. I think she's a great politician. I think she's actually a loss, because you need characters in politics, actually.
But
I think
Charlie, the Tory MP's called her Mad Dad. In an affectionate way, I dare say, but she is slightly potty.
You can never rule anything out in politics, I think, from what we've learned over the last few years. But I think to ditch Rishi now and install another leader so close to a general election, I think probably would be a misstep.
Stella, we did see Lord Cameron on D-Day with Joe Biden, Emmanuel Macron, whilst, Rishi Sunak was hot-footing it back to the UK.
The Tories are relentless. They cannot stop eating their own children. They are absolutely ruthless. I think Nadine Dorries is having a bit of fun. I agree with Charlie. I think she's having fun with all of us. She knows that people are watching here. She knows we don't want to be bored, and we are now hooked. We are addicted on political parties doing something every 1 hour. So she's giving us, she's throwing red meat at us.
So where was Rishi Sunak yesterday, then?
Well, he was hiding, which was the correct thing to do, because for once again he had to come back as a prime minister and say, "I'm really sorry, I messed up again," which is embarrassing.
OK, just very briefly, Charlie Rowley, Sir Keir Starmer is rumoured to be announcing a policy next week when the manifesto for Labour is out on Thursday, I believe, that they will recognise Palestine as a state. Are they bowing down to the Muslim votes, this organisation which has said, Labour, we'll give you our vote back after the local elections, but you need to bow down to this list of 18 demands, one being the recognition of a Palestinian state, others including redefining the meaning of Islamic extremism?
What the policy is likely going to say is we will do what every other country in the world is likely to do, which is we will recognise Palestine when A, B, C, D has been fulfilled. There will be a region, there will be criteria.
Dennis, you disagree with your Labour code?
Other European countries have done the same.
Sorry, Stella. 144 UN countries, including European Union ones, recognise Palestine. Ireland, very close to us, Slovenia, a friend, and Norway, a very close ally of Britain, have just done
Sweden.
it. It's symbolic. Everybody wants the two-state solution, but stop pretending there shouldn't be a Palestinian state. It's symbolic, I agree. It will make no difference to the Gaza conflict, but it doesn't... I think, actually, an awful lot of people in Britain are so saddened by the spectacle of Netanyahu behaving the way he is that this might actually be a sensible thing, and I think a lot of Tories would support it as well.
I mean, very briefly, if you want. I mean, it's always been long-standing that there's a two-state solution. You want to bring that conflict, the whole conflict, to an end and bring peace to that region. Lord Cameron, funny enough, who's going to be the next leader, apparently, as we were just talking about, has obviously gone further than most, I think, to say we need to get to a place where there's a two-state solution and actually establish a Palestinian state. But the key question that you're asking is it appropriate or right to have it in a national general election campaign manifesto? There's a question around that in terms of the voters. But I think, as Dennis was saying, because of the conflict and because of the attention that this conflict has drawn amongst Brits, I think it's probably less cynical than what might have otherwise been the case in previous campaigns.
Lovely stuff. Stella Chadikidu, Charlie Rowley, Dennis McShane, thanks very much. After the break, yesterday we saw the release of 4 Israeli hostages from Hamas in Gaza. It comes as a recent poll suggested over half of young Brits don't believe Israel should exist. Can you believe that? Journalist and broadcaster Jonathan Sakadotti will be here to give his take on all that in just a second. This is Ben Leo covering for Michael Portillo on GB News this Sunday. Back in just a tick.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
I've got a grade 3 astrocytoma brain tumour. Once I was diagnosed, I tried to do my claim with my insurance company and was rejected. it was then... They then also cancelled my life insurance and also cancelled my wife's policies as well.
And this is Zurich Insurance, John.
This is Zurich,
and their point was, because you'd had some dizzy spells, which you hadn't told them about, they say dizzy spells equates to brain tumour, which there's no evidence to support that.
I was with King's College Hospital. They ignored them. King's College Hospital were the experts.
And you were expecting £25,000?
Yeah, that was a critical illness claim.
Critical illness, because you've got a critical illness. Clearly, it couldn't be more critical, could it?
No.
Michelle, you've got a lovely, poorly husband, and you're also worrying about paying the bills and what the future holds.
Yeah.
What impact is this having on you on a day-to-day basis?
I try not to think too much about the future because it does upset me. I'm kind of thinking, when John does go, I'm left with a mortgage to pay and 2 young children.
How old are your kids?
5 and 3.
Right.
Yeah. So it's incredibly tough.
And are you working?
I haven't worked since having the children.
Right.
And that's a decision we made when we had children.
In the grand scheme of things, this amount of money is a drop in the ocean for a company like Zurich.
Yeah, because I think they could make all this go away.
I've read some of the statement. Zurich said, "We're sorry to hear of the very difficult circumstances Mr. Rendler's family are experiencing." You're terminally ill, and they're calling that difficult circumstances.
The People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 12:24. Ben Leo here with you, covering for Michael Portillo on this glorious Sunday. Yesterday, the Israeli Defence Forces successfully rescued 4 hostages held by Hamas after a gruelling 8 months. The news comes during a week where a poll by the Unheard website revealed on Wednesday that over half of Brits aged 18 to 24 do not believe that Israel should exist. Only a quarter of the respondents in the 18 to 25 age group blamed Hamas for the war. In the coming days, it is also said that the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, is reportedly set to reveal plans to recognise a Palestinian state in the Labour manifesto. That comes out Thursday next week. And that's in a move seen as an attempt by Labour to reassure the left of the party. But the question remains, is this the right time to be doing this? And is he just appeasing the young, outspoken vote? Joining me now to discuss this is journalist and broadcaster Jonathan Sakadotti. Jonathan, good morning to you. Thank you for coming in, or good afternoon, rather. First of all, this situation in Gaza yesterday with the IDF, they carried out what's being described as a rather sophisticated raid on the refugee camp where these hostages were being kept. Tell us some more about it.
Incredible raid and quite heroic. So I think for all this time that those hostages have been out of Israel's hands and there's been a lot of depression in the country about being able to rescue them, this is exactly the sort of tonic they needed. Yes, it's only 4 of them, but they were rescued in a very daring operation which saw the IDF and Israeli police descend on this area, which was a civilian area because that's where Hamas are hiding the hostages. They were held in 2 different apartments. Noah Agamani was in one, she's the female hostage, and the others were in another apartment. And they did this impressive raid where they managed to get in, take them out and get them back to Israel safe and sound.
So look, Jonathan, from a military perspective, it was impressive. However, the argument at the moment and the conjecture online is that it came at a cost, a severe cost to Palestinian lives. The Hamas health authorities say that the figure of Palestinian civilians, women and children included, was something like 140. The IDF say it's perhaps under 100. The question remains, from some people, playing devil's advocate, are 4 Israeli lives, the hostages, are they worth 100 Palestinian deaths?
Ben, I can only tell you that if, for some twist of fate, you or I got kidnapped from this country by terrorists, I would hope the British Army and the British forces would do absolutely everything the Israeli forces did to get us back. And I think if it does come at a cost, perhaps that'll be a cost that Hamas and Palestinian terrorists learn, that when you kidnap civilians from their homes and when you take them into hostage imprisonment for over 200 days, you can expect that the Israeli army will do everything it can to get them back. And it's worth pointing out as well that this issue of calling people civilians is tricky here because they were being held apparently in civilian homes. So I would question whether or not most people watching would feel that someone keeping prisoners, civilians stolen from Israeli territory, innocents, keeping them prisoner in their homes under armed guard, whether those really are civilians under the rules of war. And I think that Israel has obviously taken a decision here to rescue those people in a way that will get them out. And it just shows how much Hamas actually blurs the distinction between civilians and combatants, because to put someone in a civilian home, there's now news going out actually around from Gazan sources that one of the people holding Noah Agamani, the family home that she was in, was actually a journalist who was working at times for Al Jazeera, who was
really? I missed that.
So, well, that's out this morning. And the fact of the matter is that then we need to re-question why there's been a high journalist death count in Gaza, because sometimes journalists aren't all nice people. Sometimes they work for Hamas. Sometimes they're keeping prisoners. And the same goes for doctors and teachers. Another hostage who was freed during the exchange much earlier on in the war said that they had been held in the home of a teacher, an UNRWA teacher, a UN school teacher. So these are the very complex issues that Israel's having to deal with when it's conducting this war.
And we're just seeing pictures on the screen now for anyone listening on radio. That's the young girl, Noah. She was kidnapped from the music festival. And that she was being reunited with her mother there, a nice warm embrace.
25 years old, Noah Agamani.
25 years old.
She's a 25-year-old girl. She was imprisoned there for that long. She said when the president of Israel called her up to welcome her home, she said, I haven't heard Hebrew for some time. So it just gives you an idea. Probably not an Arabic speaker, probably been unable to understand very much at all during that entire period.
So look, Jonathan, good news on that front. 4 hostages returned home. How many are remaining, though? It's a large number.
That's right. There are, I think, over 100 hostages still there, and we don't know exactly how many of them are still alive. And I think this is incredibly problematic because really what the world should be calling for is immediate release of these hostages. That's a humanitarian issue. There is literally no defence for those hostages still being in Gaza. Israel is under a lot of scrutiny for how it's conducting this war, but ultimately its aim is to get back those hundreds of people that are still being held in Gaza by Palestinian terrorists.
What does this mean for Benjamin Netanyahu's government? Because he, I guess he'll be taking this as a bit of a win and saying that his plan to resolve this conflict militarily is working. However, I was listening to an IDF spokesman on the radio last night who was saying that actually the biggest hope of getting all these hostages back, the remaining hostages, is through some sort of deal, some ceasefire deal.
Certainly the ceasefire negotiations have been going back and forth, and Joe Biden announcing what he said was an Israeli plan only a few days ago has been met by Israel saying that it wasn't exactly the plan that they had put forward. There is still discussion, and certainly some sort of negotiated deal would be ideal because, you know, this is not an easy thing for them to do. If they only managed to rescue 4 people in this way, you can imagine how complex it would be to try and rescue any greater number.
OK, let me ask you about the situation in the UK, because unbelievably, this Middle East goings-on is now having a drastic effect on everything happening here, especially with our election. We saw in the local elections the so-called Muslim vote having a bit of a detrimental effect on Labour. So Keir Starmer is rumoured next week to be recognising Palestine as a state in the Labour manifesto. I want to know whether this is a deliberate bow down, not only to the Labour left, but to this group, the Muslim vote group, who, of course, made those 18 demands of Labour and to Keir Starmer before they'd lend their vote back to the party. Others being redefining the description of Islamophobia, cutting all ties with Israeli-made arms companies or Israeli businesses in the UK, so on and so on. Is this a bow down to not only the left, but the Muslim vote as well?
Certainly Labour has a problem because it relies on votes in some portion of its constituents from people who have extremely negative views of Israel, and therefore it might want to reflect that. And Keir Starmer, as a politician, I think, as a Jewish person, I'm aware that he sat next to Jeremy Corbyn for a very long time campaigning for him to be Prime Minister. So I'm aware that Keir Starmer is somebody that does flip and turn in his policies according to what he thinks is going to be expedient, but that's because he's a politician. In terms of that polling that you mentioned, I think it is quite a depressing showing, but we need to be careful as well because they surveyed 1,000 people. Anything under 2,000 is not necessarily the most rigorous for British population opinion. Yeah. And of those, if you then look at the number of 18 to 24-year-olds that it said over 50% of have this peculiar opinion of Israel, well, how many people in that 1,000 were actually that age group? So it could be skewed. But I'll say this, for those people that don't think Israel should exist, what an extraordinary thing to say. I mean, there are people saying Britain shouldn't exist, France shouldn't exist. Yeah. Israel does exist. Yeah. There's over 6 million Jews there. We've had a period in history when people thought that 6 million Jews shouldn't be around. In fact, this is why the state of Israel is so essential. What happened with those hostages, what happens, generally speaking, about Israel is that it will defend Jews from those enemies who want to kill us.
I saw it yesterday. I was on my way home to the south coast of Victoria, loads of youngsters with all sorts of horrible signs. But, it's a strange situation. The young generation, I mean, they don't even know about D-Day, let alone what's going on in Israel-Palestine. So, Jonathan Sakadotti, thank you very much. After the break, we'll be looking at the latest polling. Has Rishi Sunak gambled away the keys to number 10? But first, here's your news headlines with Theo Chikomba.
It's 12:33. I'm Theo Chikomba in the GB newsroom. A body has been found in the search for TV doctor Michael Mosley, who went missing on a Greek island earlier this week. An umbrella was discovered next to the body beneath a fence that runs around a bar on Agia Marina Beach. The area is surrounded by hilly, rocky terrain, around 30 minutes walk from the village of Petty, where Dr. Mosley was last seen. The search effort has spent days operating in dangerous conditions and high temperatures and has included police and firefighters equipped with drones. The Conservatives are setting out a plan to save around £12 billion a year by tightening the criteria for those who claim benefits. It would see more people told to find work, including some who receive disability payments. The Prime Minister has also pledged to tackle what he's called sick note culture. It would mean GPs are no longer able to sign people off work, with specialist workplace health professionals given the responsibility instead. Labour called it a vague promise that won't get Britain healthy or bring benefits under control. Meanwhile, Labour is pledging to alleviate some of the pressure on overcrowded prisons with a plan to add 14,000 new places. It would see some prisons classified as sites of national importance so ministers can take control of planning decisions. It comes after some inmates were released early due to severe overcrowding across the prison system. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer says the problem is getting worse.
Well, I am critical of the Tories' early release scheme because what's happened is that they're releasing early prisoners who should still be in prison. And that's a shocking state of affairs. And like the many problems that they have left for the country, if we do come into power, we're going to have to fix it. Now, that will involve building prisons. That will involve taking tough decisions because the money's been allocated for prison building. But there are tough decisions about planning and getting those prisons up. But what we can't have is a continuation of this total mess.
For the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews/alerts.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Joint CEO at the UK Sepsis Trust, Dr. Ron Daniels. Very good to see you this morning. Why is it with sepsis we sort of hear very little about it in day-to-day life until there's either a big story or a big tragedy? Why is that? Is it common?
Well, it's astonishing, isn't it? We have a condition here that affects nearly 250,000 people across the UK each year and claims 48,000 lives. And just for context, breast cancer, and I'm not diminishing how horrible that can be, claims 11,000 lives. So sepsis is 4 times more prolific as a killer. I think the reason we don't hear about it is because it doesn't really belong to any particular speciality of doctors. It touches every aspect of healthcare, and therefore there's no professional group to be championing it, which means it needs an advocacy organisation like ours.
My understanding is that it's when your own immune system starts to attack the tissues, but by the time people realise that their temperature isn't just flu or something, they can often be in quite a perilous state.
It arises in people of any age, people with whether or not they've got underlying illness, and it can arise as a consequence of any infection. So it presents hugely differently.
So what do we do?
If you're concerned something is devastatingly wrong, there are 6 key symptoms to look for, and they spell the word sepsis. S for slurred speech or confusion. E for extreme pain in the muscles or joints. P for passing no urine, no water in a day. S for severe breathlessness. I for it feels like I'm going to die, and people really do say that. And then the final S for skin that's mottled or discoloured or very pale. Any one of those 6 in the context of infection, it goes straight to A&E.
The People's Channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians and the media, but it's actually about you.
And we won't ever forget that. Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
Now more than ever, it's important to hear
all sides as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 12:38. Ben Leo here in for Michael Portillo this Sunday, only on GB News. Let's get the latest on the general election polling. Reform UK, of course, a couple of days back in that YouGov poll were 2 points behind the Conservatives, whilst the Labour Party, of course, storming ahead. I'm joined now by the co-founder of Delta Poll, Joe Twyman, and Chief Executive of Ipsos, Ben Page. Let's get the thoughts of you first, Joe. Just give us an update on the polling as of this morning, please.
Well, our most recent poll at Delta Poll came out late last night. Its fieldwork date entirely comes after Rishi Sunak's return from the D-Day commemorations, and it shows the Conservatives on -4 from the previous poll, 21% in total, and that is the lowest that we have had the Conservatives at any stage in this Parliament, even when Liz Truss was at her darkest days. Labour on 46, so that gives Labour a 25-point lead, which would be an absolutely enormous majority. Reform are the beneficiaries, up 3%, and they, I'm sure, will want to gain on that further in the week coming up.
So just to be clear, the D-Day gaffe, if we call it that, with Rishi Sunak, that's had a direct effect, and it appears those who answer the poll are going to Reform, is that right?
Well, it's always difficult to attribute a specific event to a change in a poll. After all, we wouldn't want to confuse correlation with causation, but I think my sense is that yes, it has certainly had an impact, along with some of the other events that took place, and partly, of course, it's to do with Keir Starmer's improved position, perhaps helped by his presence at D-Day when Rishi Sunak was absent, and some of those voters are going to Reform, but some of them are choosing simply not to vote as well.
OK, Ben Page, Chief Exec of Ipsos, what's your analysis? What are you seeing?
Well, I mean, I think Nigel Farage's return to frontline politics and standing in Clacton means that the Conservatives now face a real threat from their right. And you couple that with the gaffe over D-Day, and we just aren't seeing the type of recovery that most of us who are used to observing British politics would sort of expect, because if you look at 1997, the last time the Conservatives had a wipeout, they ended up the campaign at 30.7% of the vote. Joe currently has them on 21. We had them on 23 last week, so they're in the low 20s. The big issue is, are we going to see that narrowing of the polls, or is reform as the wild card going to mean that the Conservatives go down to one of their biggest defeats ever? It's still not clear, to be quite honest, but either way, the question now is simply, how big will the Conservative loss be?
OK, to both of you, no offence, I've got a bit of beef with polls because in my recent memory anyway, they've always been wrong. 2016, the Donald Trump race with...
Well, would you be happy if 9 out of 10 times the true value of a party's support was within 4 points of what was being predicted, and let's say 2/3 of the time it was within 2 points of what was being said? Would that be satisfactory in your assessment? 90% of the time within 4 points. Would you be happy with that?
I was referring back to the... I mean, it's American pollsters for sure, but I was...
American
Ben,
polls.
1 second.
American polls conducted by...
Hang on. If you both let me finish my point, you'll hear what I'm going to say. In 2016, Hillary Clinton was infamously dubbed a 99% chance to beat Donald Trump. He, of course, won. Brexit was polled to be a Remain vote. Then we had the Theresa May vote in 2017, was it? They've always been wrong.
Polls are subject to margin of error, and I repeat, would you be happy if 90% of the time the true value of a party's support was within 4 points of the polling, and 2/3 of the time it was within 2 points of the polling?
That would be satisfactory, yes.
In the whole history of polling, would you be happy with that?
Yes. Ben?
Well, that's exactly what the historical situation is. So may I suggest that perhaps you're cherry-picking the polls that on occasions have been very close, and so within the margin of error. And as you will know, margin of error is subject to the laws of probability. You can't abolish that in the same way that you can't abolish the laws of gravity. And so when things are close, particularly in key states in the United States, for instance, or with a Brexit referendum, then inevitably the margin of error
Joe,
comes into play.
I'm not cherry picking. I'm just giving you my own real world experience, which I'm playing devil's advocate.
As a matter of historical fact,
okay. All right, Ben, let's hear what Ben has to say.
Polling, 90% of polls.
Got it. We
in
understand,
terms of
Joe.
the final election have fallen within 4 points of the true value, and 2/3 of the time it's within 2 points. That is a matter of historical fact.
Ben?
So just two things. I think, first of all, Joe's obviously right in the sense that if you look at the average of all polls in all general elections around the world since 1940, the average error for each party, as measured by Professor Will Jennings, is about plus or minus 2%. So when things are very close, accidents can happen. In this case, it would be an accident of, unimaginable proportions. And remember, back in 2019, the average for all polls error for each party was 0.6%. That was the average, and some of us did better than that, such as massively inside the margin of error. This time, when you've got a 20 percentage point difference between the parties, the polls would have to be wronger than they've ever been for Labour not to do well. So, I think we always learn from, when we aren't as good as we want to be. But Joe is right in pointing to the historical record. And at this time, I don't think anybody believes the Conservatives are likely to, do anything except lose quite badly. And the big question is how badly. And I think what you really need to look for is that narrowing, because John Major, during his campaign in 1997, saw his personal ratings improve and the Tory share of the vote increase. And that is just not happening this time so far.
Yeah, it looks like the writing's on the wall, certainly. Joe Twyman from Delta Poll and Chief Exec of Ipsos, Ben Page, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
That was feisty, wasn't it? Right. After the break, we'll be shaking and stirring, of course, more alcohol as we celebrate World Gin Day with Hannah Harley-Young, the host of Crazy Sexy Food podcast, who'll be with me, armed with lots of booze, for our taste of Britain. Stick with us, back in a tick.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So a bit of a cloudy start for many of us this morning, but there is some sunshine in places due to high pressure situated down towards the south of the UK. But it's these weather fronts that will push in from the northwest, turning quite rainy and cloudy for many of us overnight tonight. That area of rain is reaching parts of Northern Ireland through the rest of this afternoon, so turning quite cloudy here with some outbreaks of rain. The best of the sunshine likely to be across the southwest of England, with some dry weather here. Further north, some sunshine, but plenty of showers pushing in from the north through the rest of this afternoon, and feeling quite chilly here in that northerly breeze. Temperatures only 13 or 14 degrees. A little warmer further south, but still a little below average for the time of year. As we head through the rest of Sunday evening, that area of rain does continue for Northern Ireland, and the showers continue for parts of Scotland as well, likely to be heavy in places with some hail and thunder mixed in. There'll be some brightness between those showers through the rest of the evening, but for Northern Ireland, a very damp end to the day on Sunday. Outbreaks of heavy rain persisting through the first part of the night. Outbreaks of rain as well for parts of Wales and into central and southern parts of England, and generally quite a cloudy end to the day here for many places. That area of rain across Northern Ireland, as I mentioned, pushes its way southeastwards through Sunday evening and into the start of Monday, but it will be turning drier across Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland through the early hours of Monday morning. And under those clear skies, likely to turn quite chilly as well. We could see a touch of grass frost in places. Generally staying a little bit milder though across much of England and Wales under that cloud and rain. Temperatures here around 12 or 13 degrees to start on Monday. So for Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland, a dry, bright but quite chilly start to the day. Plenty of showers continuing to push in from the north, but quite a cloudy and damp day, particularly for eastern parts of England. Maybe some difficult driving conditions here through the morning rush hour. Plenty of showers then through Monday afternoon, and temperatures still a little disappointing for the time of year. 18 or 19 in the south and 10 to 12 in the north.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but it's actually about you.
And we won't ever forget that. Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
Now more than ever, it's important to hear
all sides as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
As time passes,
She could have saved Storm.
You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
something practical could be done.
I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. Ben Leo in for Michael Portillo on this Sunday. I hope you're having a good weekend. My favourite part of the show is here. If you didn't know, yesterday was World Gin Day. I'm joined now by Hannah Harley-Young, the host and creator of the Crazy Sexy Food podcast. And you're going to share some of your tasty recipes, gin-inspired recipes and creations, including, first of all, let's get this out of the way. We've got a pasta here. I don't know if we can see it. It's even warm still as well.
Yep. Oh, good.
What is it? It's a gin pasta.
So this is called penne alla gin. Now, most people will know this dish as penne alla vodka, which is a very famous American-Italian dish.
Right.
This is not confirmed, but I quite love the history of this dish, and I'm going to tell you about it. They say that it kind of started around the 1980s, and it was given to party-goers at discos. So sort of like halfway through the night where you're a little bit drunk, but you might need something to eat.
It's kind of an oxymoron, isn't it? It's like,
with alcohol.
It's kind of like eat to make sure you don't get too drunk, but at the same time it's full of booze.
Yeah.
Let me just taste it.
Try it. So the idea of the alcohol in the tomato sauce is that it accentuates all the flavours. What do you think?
Yeah. Oh, it's got a bit of a kick.
Yeah.
There we go.
There might be some chilli kick in there as well.
All right. I'll have one more, then I think I'll leave it at that.
But what's quite nice about it is that you obviously cook off the alcohol, so it's not like you're going to get drunk from it, but it's something fun.
Yeah, it's nice. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's something different. It's interesting.
Interesting. I'll tell you what I much more prefer, these things here.
Yes,
What's going on?
OK. So I'm going to give you a cocktail. This is an Elderflower Collins. Now, this is a take on the famous Tom Collins cocktail, which is gin, soda water, lemon juice and some elderflower cordial.
Sounds refreshing.
So cheers.
All right, here we go.
Should we try this?
Oh, I had loads of wine earlier, by the way, so I'm going to be stumbling out of the studio in a bit.
Well, that's nice.
Very nice.
I find this really refreshing, and what I like is something that I love about gin, obviously being flavoured and made with juniper berries, but a lot of gins are used with herbs and sort of botanicals. So I love putting rosemary with mine.
Yeah.
Other certain gins, it's quite nice to have a slice of cucumber. It really depends what your preference is.
I went to the races the other night, and they were putting bay leaves in with
great,
gin.
lovely.
I thought that was a great touch.
Any
and actually,
herb.
you can take, this is, what, rosemary?
Yes.
Yeah, you can really taste that in
really nice.
Evolving out.
This one's really fun. So you think that this might be a shot? It's not. This is a gin and tonic jelly.
A jelly?
Yes.
So maybe the dessert to the pasta.
Exactly. I gave you a whole meal.
Thank you very much. Looking after me
So
today.
this is really, really simple to make. Obviously, I'm sure everyone at home has made a jelly.
Can we see this jelly on the camera?
Well, that's quite strong.
There we go.
So this is infused literally with gin and tonic. And you can really taste that. But this is lovely. And I like the fact that you can put them in little shot glasses. What do you think?
Wow, that's even stronger than the actual
I know,
drink.
yeah.
Did you make these?
Yes.
Yeah. Goodness me. That really
That's
would.
nice, though. That's got a good kick.
That really would get me sozzled. That's nice and refreshing. That's a bit, sensible. That's just asking for trouble.
Well,
Tell us about gin.
Yes.
I remember from years ago, 10, 15 years ago, I lived near Brighton, lots of gin bars popping up, loads of different varieties and brands. We love gin now, don't we?
We do love gin. I mean, it's kind of seen as like the national drink of the UK. But it originated centuries ago. It was actually a medicinal liquor that was made by monks and alchemists sort of around the 13th century. But it became very popular during a time called the gin craze. And what sort of happened there is there was a huge import tax put onto international spirits, such as French brandy. At the same time, the government was allowing unlicensed gin production. This was around sort of 1695 to sort of 1700. And basically, people were like, well, if we can't buy in the alcohol, we'll make it ourselves. It's legal too. And we'll start making gin.
And how do we rank in terms of, gin makers globally? Are we top dogs?
I mean, personally, I think so. But according to my research, we are kind of like the top dog.
What does your research involve, by the way? Just sitting there thinking different gin bottles?
Basically, yeah. It's a tough life.
We've both got hard jobs.
I think, what's quite interesting about gin is a lot of people don't realise that it's a gin martini.
Right.
There's also a vodka martini, but really it's the gin martini that kind of started things off. Do you like a gin martini or a vodka martini?
Not really. My drink of choice is vodka, soda water and lime.
Oh, OK.
So what do they call that? A skinny vodka?
A skinny, yeah.
Or, I got called girly for this, a pink gin lemonade.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Yeah, is that OK? Not too... I was made to feel sort of emasculated for that choice.
No, not at all, not at all. I mean, I do love a martini, but I like a dirty martini. So that's with the olive juice that kind of cuts through like the brine. But obviously the martini made famous by James Bond.
Yes.
And here's a stat for you that I find quite fun. During the Ian Fleming novels, he ordered 19 vodka martinis and 16 gin martinis.
Excellent. Well, there we go. So, look, thank you for this. Really appreciate it.
Okay.
I'm going to get stuck into this backstage. Cheers, Hannah, from the Crazy Sexy Food podcast.
Thank you very much.
Found you on Instagram, all the socials. That's it for me today. Michael will be back next week, I'm sure, when he's finished from his birthday celebrations. Up next, it's Dawn Neeson. Cheers to you. Have a lovely weekend.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So a bit of a cloudy start for many of us this morning, but there is some sunshine in places due to high pressure situated down towards the south of the UK. But it's these weather fronts that will push in from the northwest, turning quite rainy and cloudy for many of us overnight tonight. That area of rain is reaching parts of Northern Ireland through the rest of this afternoon, so turning quite cloudy here with some outbreaks of rain. The best of the sunshine likely to be across the southwest of England, with some dry weather here. Further north, some sunshine, but plenty of showers pushing in from the north through the rest of this afternoon, and feeling quite chilly here in that northerly breeze. Temperatures only 13 or 14 degrees. A little warmer further south, but still a little below average for the time of year. As we head through the rest of Sunday evening, that area of rain does continue for Northern Ireland, and the showers continue for parts of Scotland as well, likely to be heavy in places with some hail and thunder mixed in. There'll be some brightness between those showers through the rest of the evening, but for Northern Ireland, a very damp end to the day on Sunday. Outbreaks of heavy rain